Hello, welcome to this update on the Yarslow Model Railway, and a very happy birthday to it. It's 2 today. The 4th of May, May the 4th, 2021 was the day that this plan was to be turned into a model railway. And although that started with a lot of work to do with electrics and lining and insulation in the shed, May the 4th, 2021 really was the day when I started dedicating some serious time to getting the layout started. And we've come quite a long way. As this bit of footage shows, this is the latest development, the getting Trinity Square up to what I've called basic level, and I'm very pleased with how things have gone. So let me talk you through the detail of what's been going on lately. Well, this is Bridge Street in Beckbridge, and the bridge goes over the entrance to Trinity Square via this girder bridge, which we saw in the last video. And here are the shops. The 4 old ones in the slightly smaller building with a couple of flats over, and then the 4 more modern ones with 4 flats over the top, and at the end the Georgian looking building, which has been given a bit of a profile, as you can see, so we have some shape to the road. But here's a rundown of how these things are built, starting with a card mock-up. The windows are then marked and cut out, the doors and windows for the shops, the old shops mounted just to make sure that it all works properly. Then the brickwork is added using plastic sheet and painted, and then the shops themselves are painted. The green and the red on the right I'm not happy with. The greens on the left, far happier. The blue and the white shop, incidentally, is going to be a fish shop. I haven't quite decided on the others, but here's a hint for you when you're doing this. When you're painting shops and whatever it happens to be, write the Humbrol paint number on the back, so that when you come to give the thing a second coat, you can remember what colour you used. A very important tip, particularly if you're like me, if you've got a head like a sieve. And here are the shops with the mortar work done on the bricks on the upper of the shops. You can see those splodges turn into just different texture on the bricks. This has been mortared and weathered, and I quite like that. From the sort of distances that you look at the layout, that works for me. As I say, the green and the red, the colours I'm not quite happy with yet. The black and the brown are fine. The colours at the far end are good. I've got the I've done the pavement this side, not the other side, but I've got the road obviously to weather down. But that's Bridge Street, and at the end there's going to be some kind of perspective, as if you're looking across at shops, and the road will in theory turn left behind this building, which is a pub cum hotel called the Shovel. Not the sort of place you want to be in on a Friday night, I would suspect. Full of guys who work down here in the loco yard. They've locked up the stores on a Friday and they've gone for 17 pints in the Shovel. And when you get the camera account, because it reminds you you've forgot to do the ballasting under the bridge. Meanwhile, here's the engine shed, which we've seen before, and we've gained another structure in true northeastern railway style, a coaling stage served by a crane. There were little square tubs that loaded basically coal straight from wagons one side of the stage onto the engines the other. And that was a common practice of northeastern railway in confined spaces where clearly they wouldn't have a coaling tower. So that sits in there. Here's a view from the back, and that services one engine at a time. The water tank's gone. I'll come back to the water tank in a minute, but the brickwork here beginning to take shape. And above the hotel, beyond the hotel, come the terraced houses. The first block, this is not me being lazy and not cutting out the windows, they're going to be boarded up, so that's kind of part of town. But the others mounted onto 1 mil card, black in this case, all the windows and doors cut out, and that will be fitted with the roof, which has also been added onto card. The chimney pots will be added as actual half chimney pots. It'll sit down behind the wall like that, so you won't see the bottom of it, and then the roof will be added just to give it a bit of profile, and then downpipes and things will go on. So I've got a number of these going all the way down the slope. That's the one that I've finished, and then I get right to the bottom. to this point here. This building hasn't been finished because I've been mucking around with the electrics, particularly these green switches, which are the on switches that operate the signals. I've done 5 of them. I've done the 4 platforms plus this one, which is the advanced starter. This is station limits in effect. So you pull the lever and the signal goes from red to green. They're not interlocked with points or track, but at least they work. That's a step in the right direction, particularly for me. I've got 4 more to do here, 5 more to do, which are the signals on the gantry. So then we get to this point and we come across the 4 factories. So 2 of them are owned by Skelly's the engineers and the other couple by the printers and bookbinders. And they sit behind the water tower. Now the water tower in a northeastern railway setting would have a brick base and a cast iron top. So this one's completely wrong, but I will get myself a proper northeastern water tower to go in there. Then we have this. This is the jail museum. And again, I've mounted this onto card, cut the windows out and remounted them so it looks like that. Beyond that I have the backs of some shops, and beyond the shops is going to be the Dominion or the Gaiety Theatre or something, not quite sure what that's going to be yet. And then I have this Pico back scene with the hoardings that will sit obviously the other side of the wall in due time. This is a Pico back scene that's been cut out and again split up into about 4 different bits and mounted onto half mil card to give a bit of a profile that you can see here. That's a close-up showing a better view. There are still some bits to add onto the back scene in due time for an extra layer. Then there's another row of shop backs before we get to the toilet block, which forms part of the station buildings. And I've made a roof vent. Each of those strips, incidentally, is a separate piece of styrene. Another one of those jobs that has driven me insane, but I've got a number of those, so I should know by now, shouldn't I? And then we come on to the station building itself, with the offices at this end, then the newsstand, then the waiting rooms, more offices in the corner. And the building is now stuck together, and as a building is finished. No detailing of course, but structurally it's complete. A little bit of detailing work to finish off to get to this point, but I'm really pleased with the way that's come out. And here's the back of it. You'll remember that I've pinched this idea of creating little rooms in the back of it. This is what you first see when you walk in the shed. So this is the main entrance to the station. The cafe on the ground floor, offices above, and then there will be hallways and entranceways on the far left. On the right hand side, the ticket office is on the ground floor, then there will be offices above, and then there will be storerooms over here on the right hand side. So now we've got this situation where when trains arrive at Trinity Square, you've got that kind of urban feel above the road, a nice general feel of being in the city. And as the trains run through the scene, the background kind of disappears. It just becomes part of the whole experience. So your eye is drawn to the train, of course, and the buildings do tend to sort of mould away, but if you take them away it looks really bare. So it's good that we've got that cityscape beginning to go on now behind the trains. Platform canopies and all that kind of stuff will be added in the next stage here at Trinity Square, and the canopies that go along the platform will come up to probably about where that billboard is, so the train will just about starting to meet the canopies about now somewhere, and it will come along the platform and stop with the concourse on the far left covered in its own canopy. You just caught a glimpse there as the train came in of the shelter that's going over the goods yard, and I've been buying some bits, some scale model scenery. This is beautiful. This is very fine laser cut MDF in the form of fencing and gate line barriers that go across at the end of the platform. the picture they present on the front shows it painted black. It's quite similar to the sort of stuff the North Eastern Railway used, and I'm going to use this across the end of the platforms from roughly where the book stand is, along behind the buffers and across the end of platforms 3 and 4 to give me that kind of gate line feel, and that's going to look really nice. At the same time, I bought this bonded warehouse. This is called an ultra low relief building, which essentially means it's about 2 millimeters thick, and it's only just a couple of bits of laser cut MDF. But I'm conscious that when I put all these buildings together, there's going to be some gaps, so I will fill the gap with this low relief bonded warehouse, and that'll make it a complete urban feel. And that's kind of where we are with Trinity Square. We've got to the point now where what I call the basics have been done. There's no more basics to do. I'm going to now turn my attention and concentrate on Yarslow again, and take Yarslow to the next level, the sort of level that the branch line is at. Now you might remember we have a branch line. We haven't been here for yonks, but the trains haven't run forever. But the branch was taken up to sort of stage 2, which is detailing of the rock, the static grass. So this is the effect I've got on the branch at the moment. Very different to elsewhere on the layout. And there's a lot of work been done in detailing the groundwork here as well. So that's what that looks like, and that's where I need to progress other parts of the layout too. And I'm going to start with this. This is Percival Cottage, another scale model scenery building that's going to go basically there in that corner. I finally made up my mind what to use, and I'm going to use this MDF again with wraps. I've started to build it, and although it should go further back into the corner, this is the effect that I'm going to get over here with just sort of one building and a few trees just sitting beside the road over in the corner behind Yarslow. And there's a fair bit of Yarslow to be done in terms of static grass and detailing. At the moment I've just got the basic flock down, and the rocks still, you can still see the base colour through. There's no detailing at all on those bare rock faces, so all that needs to be dealt with. Buildings need to be properly sat down and buildings finished. So this is the kind of second stage of getting it to where the branch now is. But there's a lot to do here, because we go from this corner, which is the entrance onto the scenic section behind the permanent way yard, round behind Yarslow South signal box, around to where that cottage is going to be, over the bridge, and that very rough ground either side of the road leading down to the station, and then at the other end, from the platform end, right the way along behind the junction signal box where the Trinity Square engines are dumped and those two odd trees, the signal are going to get replaced, and then the hop of the branch embankment right round past the engine shed in the corner. A bit of work to do on that wall which hasn't been painted, over to this end. Thank you, Ian, for the tree. You can see that it works exactly as proposed in helping to hide that hole in the sky. I have been experimenting in the front here just to get my eye back in with the static grass maker. So I've done some, I think this is 10mm on the front, and then I've did some 6mm, and there's some sort of 2 or 3mm at the back, just to get a flavour for how things were going, make sure I could remember how to do it. But there's a lot of work here. This is going to be a couple of weeks doing gluing and static grassing, but I'm looking forward to that. It's going to make a change from making buildings, because this is what Yarslow looks like at the moment. Whilst Trinity Square has been worked on, everything that has been at Trinity Square has been dumped on Yarslow, and it looks a complete mess. So yesterday I had a mass clear out, ran some trains again, and I was able to see the wood for the trees, as it were, and I can get some work done on Yarslow. Finally, I'm going to say a huge thank you to all those people who have responded to the cheese sandwich question. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, have a look at the previous video. I threw out there a question of what do you want me to talk about in the bite-sized bits, and lots of people have come back to me with lots of suggestions. So thank you to everybody who has come back to me in the comments or emails or whatever. Some of them are quite straightforward, some of them are quite interesting and not things that I even thought of, covering. Some I have sort of covered before and you want a bit more information. There are some I'm only going to touch on. A couple of people have said to me, can I do something on signalling? That is a minefield, let me tell you. So what I've decided to do on topics like signalling is to cover them off from the perspective of the Yarslow layout, with the usual caveat that you need to be aware of your era and your area. Now, the North Eastern Railway were great for having a signal to allow you to do absolutely everything. So not uncommon for forests of signals to appear on a North Eastern Railway layout. Not the case for other companies. So hence the caveat that I can't cover every single railway company. I'll give you the basics of signalling to help you. So, you know, the whole point of starters and home signals and distances and all the rest of it. I can give you that. That's nice and straightforward. But in terms of minute detail, it's all about your era and your area. I've also had some huge topics that people want me to cover. I've had one request to cover off, in fact several requests to cover off things like trackside signage. Again, I'll do that in the context of the Yarslow layout, so things like mileposts and gradient signs, all that kind of stuff, and all the cabinetry that arrives, and you can see at the line side what's all that for. Thank you very much for all your suggestions. I will be pulling those together, and what's coming next as a bite-sized bit will be a brief summary of all the things that people have suggested and how I'm going to deal with it. I'm still making lists and sifting all through it, but a massive thank you, and also a massive thank you to all those people who suggested ways of making cheese sandwiches. I'm a cheese and pickle man personally, but if you like your cheese sandwiches in another way, well, get on and enjoy them yourself. In the meantime, many thanks for joining along. Stay tuned. We've got another video coming up in a month's time. We've got a bite-sized bit, as I say, going through the mill at the moment. Stay safe, everybody. I'll see you soon.